Hello, welcome to the Trade Game channel. This is Daniel. It's January 25th, and we are here to talk about trading cryptocurrency. Specifically, we're going to be talking about opening a grid on Solar SXP here. So, we have been talking about this currency, about where it might go. We believe it has a bright future. And so we're going long on it. We have identified here on the graph, on the chart, the low. This is the lowest that this price has been for this coin. I think since the last bull market, but at least for the last year. And also identified some other levels of support underneath where it currently is, and also here. And I had suggested possibly this blue line as a trigger line to start the bot going long, depending on our settings. We also have marked out here in red some areas of resistance from here a while back. And we had also talked about how there is a previous high that could act as resistance for this coin. Oh, that's interesting. Different shade of red. Let's do that one. Yeah, well, sure. At right around, or perhaps just slightly below $1. So that's one big area. I would say sort of like the highest that solar has gotten in price since the last bull market. So this guy, if he regains even a portion of the value that it had in the last bull market, should do very well for us. But we're looking to get into a long grid trade on it, and we'll see where we go from there. We believe on the daily that it had formed a wedge pattern here, or it was starting to form a wedge pattern, and looks like it's broken to the downside on that. So it may be breaking to the downside. Well, we have to kind of see it, but it has not really quite broken yet. So that being said, it is starting to set lower lows, and so it's probably going to trend in that way, at least for a minute. So what we were thinking was potentially setting an entry point for a long, essentially, which should say a trigger price for the bot to start opening longs at around 26 cents per solar. Maybe perhaps a good level. But I think I was kind of talking more realistically about around 22 cents, but that's kind of like perhaps further down the road, trying to catch like really what might be the absolute bottom for this, as it sort of corrects down towards its support on the weekly time frame. It's sort of kind of due for a little continued downwards motion. I don't know. I suspect it'll at least retake this low or kind of challenge it. But yeah, I don't know. Chasing the bottom, trying to predict where the dip is going to be is always quite an interesting game to try and play. But so what I'm suggesting for our purposes though, when it comes to our grid trading with some leverage here, is that because we're going to be doing this with leverage, and I don't think that we're going to need to keep these bots open for all year long. I think that really we probably keep them open for a week or two, and I think that might be a more ideal length of time anyway. Um, just sort of depending on where how the bots are performing and where they're at and where we'd like them to be. Um, so we're trying to get a long bot going on this SXP, right? Uh, and what I'm suggesting is a couple of things. One thing, we're not going to go have the grid extend up to $1 up to its like very long time highs. As much as we could do that, and it certainly wouldn't be the end of the world, that sort of spreads out our margin a little bit too much, I think. And we could potentially take these areas of support, or not support, support and resistance. They're, of course, they're both. They typically, support can also be resistance. Um, but I also think that that's not really necessary. I think that in terms of our grid trading for what we're looking to do for a few weeks or a week or two, just taking this local swing high up here from December, early December, is plenty far back, I think, to go to set the top of our grid. So I'm suggesting we set the top of our grid at 48 cents. And I also think at the bottom of our grid, which we had previously set a little bit below this all-time low, I think I've moved up to being pretty much exactly at the all-time low, or pretty close to it, at 16 and a half cents per SXP, because that is, as I said, I think this is the lowest that it has been since the last bull market, like all throughout the bear market and stuff. And so it'd be pretty interesting if it does actually get below that. But that leaves us with a grid that's more or less half above and half below the current price. So I'm pretty happy with the levels myself. So the idea here is to try and catch the bot when it is on a an upwards swing, when the price action is beginning to swing upwards, right? You don't necessarily want the bot to be in loss as soon as you start it, because it's going to get assigned a liquidation value once we start the bot, um, and we're going to have to kind of pay close attention to that liquidation value in the beginning when the bot gets started. Um, for some of these bots that I have going, that I've had successfully managed to get going with like 25 times leverage, um, I don't really have to watch the liquidation value all that closely, really. But it's because they've built up quite a lot of margin in the bot to hedge against liquidation. Um, in the beginning, the bot will only have the margin that we've put into it to start the bot, and it will all be spread out across the grids. So it's a little more tricky, a little more vulnerable. Um, so to that end, in terms of like trying to catch this when the price is actually trending up, and I mean, if you're talking about wanting to start long, especially a swing long or something, it's not a bad idea necessarily to set trigger prices kind of like this sometimes, um, where you're starting a trade, but you're not necessarily going to start a trade and say, oh, I think I'll go long from this low price. You might say, oh, okay, I think I'll go long if it breaks this recent local high. If it gets up above that, then I think the price will probably continue to go up, and so that'll be a good trade for me. Um, and so, like with this one, we've had this recent pump in price. Um, and then we set kind of a low high there, and then didn't quite get as high. So this one's slightly lower than this one, but then formed kind of almost equal high, really, which tends to cause a rejection downwards, um, which it did. And so that's sort of petering out now. Um, so you could kind of speculate, say, well, if it breaks these equal highs again, then it's probably going to be seriously trending upwards. Um, but also, I mean, it also might take quite some time for that to realistically happen on the daily chart, and we do need the bot to start. Um, but we also don't necessarily want the price to go up, catch this, and then go down. So anyway, my thinking currently is to have our trigger price set right about here. I think that's pretty reasonable. We've recently had a pretty significant decrease in the price here, a significant bearish action, and it may retrace back up, and well, it kind of already has to fill in trade gap, but um, my guess would be if it finds support or swings down here, if it's going to come back up, it will certainly have to pass through here if it really is going to trend up. But this also could continue all the way down. So I think that just in terms of hedging our bets overall, I think this is a reasonable level. Up here does make sense from some respect, but this is also a pretty significant level of resistance and support here. And so I think that we can safely kind of have this as our trigger, at least for right now. Because the idea mainly with this is that if the price goes down, goes south, then we don't have our bot going into loss all of a sudden. And if it goes sideways, then we also don't really have to worry about it too much. We can maybe continue to tweak this. Um, and then if it does go up, then it at least is showing, at least even if it goes up and hits this trigger price, um, and then comes back down, it at least is showing it would be showing some strength in order to get to that trigger to have it go off and then go down. So we'd have a better chance of having the bot survive if it gets up to here and then does swing back down to a lower point, um, because at least it will be kind of showing some sort of strength. Um, versus if we try predicting where the bottom is going to be, um, if solar does well, which is what we want it to do, after all, we might miss it entirely, and the bot might not start, which would not do us any good. Whereas if the price does just continue down and tank, we will have triggered the bot and we'll have to go into loss. So I think that setting a trigger price higher than the current price is really the way to go here. So anyway, so my suggestion here is going to be that we're going to do an SXP bot with times 10 leverage. That's I think we can sort of tolerate that at this point, and we'll see how it does. And we'll kind of keep it open here for maybe a week or two or something, for a little bit anyway. Um, with a range from 16.5 cents up to 48 cents. And I'm going to suggest that we use 120 grid lines for this one. After doing some back testing, using a system that's more that's automated and that's more set up to backtest grid trading stuff. I'm thinking that while uh, setting the bots up kind of where they're trading fairly frequently, kind of in the like point 0.3 to point 0.1 range um, is fine. It's totally fine, and especially if you're trying to eke out a little bit of margin right at the beginning, it can kind of make sense to sacrifice a little bit of efficiency for that sake. But for the most part, I think that it seems like these bots, at least based on back testing and also just some of my independent research, um, kind of on average do a little bit better around the like 1% or 2% profit per grid range, or at least a little closer to the 1% range. So what I'm going to suggest for this one, just in terms of taking everything with a grain of salt, is 120 grids, which will give us a profit per grid for this one of 0.50 to 1.59%, using an arithmetic distribution, just evenly spaced grids. Okay, so that's going to be my suggestion uh, for this bot. And what I think that we need to do is have our bot configured, set up with the trigger price where it is, uh, and then uh, what we can simply do for a little while here, yeah, that might be fine, is we will still be following this coin. Okay, yeah, we're still going to be watching it. It's still, coin we want to invest in. But we're going to be chasing it. We're going to be chasing it with. Oh, where was he? Stop. Oh, I'm not the guy. We don't know what the liquidation value for the bot is going to be once it does get opened, and so I haven't really set a red area for this. But I will. Once we get a liquidation value, I'll use a red line to indicate where it is, and well, some sort of line. I may start using the orange line. No, but I like using the orange line for the indicator. We'll figure out something. Uh, okay, so I'm going to suggest that we go ahead and have the grid set up and kind of ready, and set in a trigger price at a higher level than the current price, not a lower level. At right around here, right around. I'd probably you could call it 36 cents, just to not be quite so finicky. And that will happen in that way. And then if price action develops into lower regions, then that's great, because it kind of just means that we get to buy in lower in the grid, and we'll be getting a cheaper price on the coin. If it goes sideways, then nothing really changes. Really, we probably just kind of keep watching it. And then if it breaks to the upside, then hey, it breaks to the upside, and that's good news. We could potentially even move this grid here, but we kind of I think depend on what the price action does. If the price action here starts to like find support and kind of seems like it's kind of trending up rather than going down, then if the bot hasn't activated yet and it's just sort of ranging sideways, um, we may move, since the bot will not have been activated yet. We may move the grid up to, like, say here, or perhaps here. Um, but all of that's just sort of speculation. So this is where we're at right now for solar. I'm expecting the price to. We previously had set this wedge up to be like this. And so it's broken to the downside on that wedge. The sort of structure that we were thinking might have had there. So currently setting lower lows here, suggesting we may be going to the downside. We will see. It was kind of looking to me on the larger time scale like we were headed for the down. We were kind of due for a move to the downside anyway, so we may be due to test support with this coin. But there's no reason to rush into starting the grid bot or rush into trying to find a long position just because of that. All right. So I'm gonna get this set up and then we'll move on to something else if I if I have energy. All right. This is the Trade Game channel. I'm Daniel. Thank you so much for watching. Please do like and subscribe. Like the video. It helps to grow our community, and we will just kind of keep an eye on this one, and we'll talk to you later. Uh, God be with you. Please be good to one another, and yeah, I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you later.